And we're live.
We're live. Well, hello, everyone. We are live. We are Denton County Friends of the Family. Thank you for tuning in with us today. My name is Cassandra Berry, and I'm a community educator here with Denton County Friends of the Family. We are the sole provider of free services to persons impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault for all of Denton County. This year, 2020, is the observance of our 40th year anniversary of when we opened our doors on September 17, 1980. So, due to the current pandemic, COVID-19, who's not familiar with that, we have made some additions, altered, and made significant pivots in how we provide services and information to the community to include hosting an online conversation about domestic violence and sexual assault. And Hillary Hightower, who is here with us, she hosts a podcast that provides you with important information. And so we want to keep you informed even while we are in this pandemic. So, again, thank you for tuning in. Today is part two of a three-part conversation we are calling At Home for the Holidays. We invite you to type any questions or comments in the comment section of Facebook so that we can address those toward the end if they're not addressed during our presentation. During our last conversation, we highlighted our Thanksgiving drive. And so we want to say thank you for all who helped us to provide meals to over 200 families. Nadia Rosales, who is here with us from um, marketing and development, worked hard along with her team, and some of us chipped in to help pass out meals and to package those up. And so we thank you, our supporters who know the importance of us having a partnership with the community to provide the compassionate and comprehensive services to the persons that we serve. Today, we have a group of experts within our agency to talk about the existence of domestic violence during the holidays. We will talk about red flags, warning signs, safety planning, self care, and things that we should be aware of and things that we can do during these holidays. We will also talk about some of the observations that our counseling staff have made when they're in sessions with both primary and our secondary victims. So today we have with us Lisa Bijan, who is a counselor with the within the adult and as well as children counseling services. Thank you for being here. We have Maya Desi, who is an LPC intern and works primarily with the children. She's a child and adolescent counselor within the agency. We also have with us Amanda Wall. Amanda is our crisis line coordinator. So basically, she's like a first line, front line responder. So thank you, Amanda, for being here today. We have Janelle Villafane. She's our outcomes coordinator. So anything that has to do with the numbers, we want to know about statistics. We want to know how to put our data into our system so that we can record the things that we're doing. Janelle is that go-to person for that. We have with us also Nadia Rosales. She's our community resource coordinator. And as I mentioned before, she and the marketing and development team do a lot as relates to preparing the items that we give to our clients during this holiday season. And last but not least, the one who's been here with the agency for the longest among us is Hillary Hightower, who's the Director of Prevention, Education, and Awareness. So thank you all for being here. So let's go ahead and get started with our conversation. And I want to start with you, Janelle. I asked you to run some numbers to look at the calls that we received during the holiday season and on the specific holidays, and you did some of that research dating back to 2018. We looked at each day of those months of November, January, and February. And then we looked at the numbers for the specific days, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And so we talked about that and didn't see necessarily that there was a specific notable trend. However, the numbers do prove some things about domestic violence in the holidays. So tell us, what you saw in that report and what it revealed to us.
Right. So, like Cassandra said, we looked at the numbers day by day over the span of 3 years. And while they were a bit too random to have something of a trend, we did find the most important feature, which was that there hasn't been a day that we haven't received hotline calls. And that includes every single holiday that we've had for at least the past 3 years. So it just shows how important the hotline is and how it truly needs to be 24/7, because while we're all at home and celebrating what is usually a happy day, there are still people actively calling that hotline and seeking assistance from us, and it doesn't stop. And we do average something of 15 callers a day during these holiday seasons, if not more. I've seen it up to the 20s and 30s in a single day. And that's a really impressive amount of people calling for help when you think about the circumstances that lead to domestic violence and sexual assault. So it just shows the importance of our agency and how we truly can't have a day off when it comes to this type of crisis.
Absolutely. I did some research looking at what has been published about domestic violence during the holidays. There's much debate about if there is an increase or if it's not. Some researchers have said that it is a myth that there are more calls during the holidays versus not. Some said that there are. And so the final outcome, a conclusion that I came to, like you said, Janelle, is that the reality is we have to maintain 24/7 and make ourselves available, because even if there's evidence of a decline in the number of calls on a specific holiday, the fact that calls have been made is a reflection of the fact that domestic violence does happen. And when I looked at those numbers that you submitted, as well as some of the research that I looked at, the number that was above the average on those days following was evidence that maybe the person was trying to just hold on, through those
Mhm.
holidays and, not quote unquote feel responsible for ruining Christmas or,
Right.
ruining Thanksgiving. And so there's much to say about the need for our services and that need also being available
Right.
on days that people would otherwise take off, and the assumption that, well, it's a great holiday, who would assault someone or abuse someone on a holiday? But unfortunately it does happen. And so it is a good thing that we are here and available um, around the
Right.
clock
I've
without
read I've
fail.
read on that research. I've read a lot of that research and seen the debates. And just as someone who is constantly looking at our agency's data and then has also worked with clients, the holidays are tricky and the whole issue is highly subjective, because I did have some, like you said, some women who would say, well, I don't want my family to be split apart on Christmas. That's important. But then, incidences of abuse work in a circle, in a rotation. And so it just kind of depends. But the most important thing is that even if it's one person calling on Christmas Day, that person is incredibly valid and we need to be there to help them. And we are. And that's the great thing about our agency.
Absolutely. So, hi, Amanda. Amanda Wall is our crisis line coordinator and works primarily out of the shelter offices. So, tell us a little bit about the conversations that you had with victims calling in during the holiday season. Are there expressed concerns about needing to escape their abuser? is there a hesitation to leave that abusive situation and come in to shelter? So tell us what your observation and your experiences have been as the crisis line coordinator.
Yes, there is oftentimes a hesitation when we do get those calls. What we know about domestic violence is it is a choice, and choices don't just stop because of holiday season. But it can be really, really difficult for someone to leave that abusive relationship and come into a shelter because they feel like they are, ruining their family's Christmas. They're ruining their children's Christmas. It's a scary situation to come into our shelter. So oftentimes we do hear a little bit of hesitancy, or like you had mentioned, I'm okay for tomorrow or for today, but can I come in tomorrow? And everyone on my team, we do safety plans and really try to make sure, is that a decision that we need to make, or maybe today really is the right thing to do, and really just let them know that it's okay to come into shelter over Christmas. It's not going to ruin anyone's Christmas. We do Christmas here at shelter. We open presents on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and ultimately it's to get them safety, which is the most important part.
Exactly. And you made a good point. I've been a part of working with different organizations and churches who made it a point to have gifts available for our residents, and for them to have as quote unquote normal a Christmas as possible. And so I make this appeal, and we'll make it again because my supervisor Hillary knows that I'm not too proud to beg as it goes. That if there's anything that you can to donate, and help us with our adoptive family. You maybe get with some of your friends and put together little gifts for the mothers that are in shelter along with the children. I invite you to do that, and I've done it before, as each of us have, and it's absolutely rewarding. And so if you haven't made plans to do something different or to give, consider Denton County Friends of the Family. That's my shameless plug. Okay, so let's talk now about the whole experience with working with clients, during the counseling session, as it relates to the fact that domestic violence happens, unfortunately, every day. The statistics show that 1 in 4 women will experience some form of intimate partner violence within their lifetimes. An unfortunate statistic is that at least 3 women are murdered every day in the United States due to domestic violence. Our Texas Council for Family Violence provides information to us annually about the number of women in Texas who lost their lives due to being murdered by their intimate partner. And this year, in October, we read a total of 150 names. And so when we talk about counseling, safety planning, that is something that, again, we have to do on an ongoing basis, holidays included. So, Lisa, tell us, in your experience as a counselor, especially working with adults, what are the holiday related risk factors for domestic violence? And then maybe go into that and tell us about how can mental health professionals help clients, manage those risk factors. And then, as something that the clients can do, what can clients do to manage the stress and anxiety, depression during the holidays? We are aware that the whole anxiety and stress and depression happens to a lot of people over the holidays. We're worrying about maybe buying gifts, maybe preparing a holiday meal. This year 2020 has imposed upon us now worrying about the coronavirus, and so that's an additional level of stress. So Lisa, talk to us about those things, about the related risk factors. What can mental health professionals do, and what can clients do to, I guess, self-care?
Yes, thank you. So a lot of things you mentioned, stress goes up, and I think that stress level is disproportionate a lot of times on women in the family, that there's an expectation of the cooking, the shopping, preparing things for kids, getting the tree put up and decorations and stockings and all of those kinds of things. And a lot of that burden does fall a lot of times on moms. Another thing that happens at the holidays is there tends to be more drinking, more substance abuse, and that's going to increase the risk of domestic violence. Anytime there's drinking or other substance abuse, the domestic violence risk goes up. And then you have people who are home together. And of course, we've experienced that for most of this year, having, seeing the results of people sort of being forced to be home if they are quarantining or during shelter in place. And that also increases the risk, and it can increase the tension around the household. So I think there's a lot of complex factors that are going on. The other thing that I'm seeing with clients right now is they've gone through since March, kind of this huge stressful time. And so their emotional resources are already worn down a little bit. And then adding the holidays onto that, I've heard a lot of clients say like it just feels like too much this year, because we've been trying to help our kids do school online, and we've been trying to work and still take care of them and get everything done. And then the other thing is the financial stress that impacts people and increases the risk. There's fights over money. Money is a huge area of control with domestic violence. And so figuring out where do I find the money to have the kind of Christmas that I would ideally like to have.
Lisa, let me ask you to add to that about the financial stress. Some of the statistics show that financial abuse occurs in about 98% of the domestic violence cases. So now you got the possibility of someone who's lost their job or been furloughed due to the pandemic. Maybe they've gotten a stimulus check, maybe not. Maybe they've had the opportunity to access unemployment. So now we're looking at little faces who, anticipate getting a Christmas present, not understanding, about finances being needed. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. So I've actually had several clients whose abusers have taken control of that stimulus money. And so they haven't gotten any of it, which has been an issue. And they do still feel that stress to want to everybody wants kids to have a great time at Christmas. I think that's kind of universal. And it can be really disheartening to feel like you can't do that. Mm-hmm. And that's also an area that if an abuser knows that this is important to the victim, then that essentially gives the abuser additional power by withholding those financial resources.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about how mental health professionals can help. I think it's super important that we're discussing with each client what their individual risk factors are, and really looking at safety planning based on their situation. The other thing that's been important is coming up with a safety plan and then a backup safety plan. So for example, if the person that victim identifies as like their safe person that they can go to, if that safe person has COVID going on in their household, they're going to need a secondary safe person. And that's something new that we've had to start thinking about, what happens in those kind of cases. The other thing with Christmas is, and of course, a lot of public places have been closed, but even more so on Christmas Day, there's not a lot of places you can go to get away from home. And so coming up with a list of places that, I think like Denny's is usually open, Walmart is open, which are not the ideal places to spend Christmas, but if someone needs a place to get away, having those written down somewhere of like, okay, here's places that are going to be open on Christmas. And I think that's important. And then the other thing is For a lot of people, visiting extended family can include some pretty significant trauma triggers. So being prepared to deal with that. A lot of our clients have past trauma in addition to current domestic violence, and that's going to be something that probably comes up around the holidays.
Well, you've touched on a lot with regard. I want to ask you to say a little bit more about safety planning.
Yeah.
What I always feel is an overwhelming statistic is that a person is 75 times more likely to be terminated. I just hate to say the word, after leaving, their abuser. And so when I'm doing training and talking to people, maybe somebody will call me and ask me for advice, I immediately say, please get in contact with one of our counselors or our advocates, do an intake so that you can do safety planning so that they don't become a part of that statistic. So talk a little bit more about safety planning. And I think it's so key what you said about, considering safety over what's maybe seen seemingly as a holiday ideal, going to Denny's, going to Walmart, going to those public places where it will provide you safety. It's not exactly where you want to spend the holiday, but if it is a plan that will create a safe environment for you, then that's the plan to follow. So talk a little bit more about that, if you will.
Yeah, so we recommend that clients have their phone on them and keep it charged, especially when they know that there's going to be blocks of time that they may be home with their abuser. Or they may not be living with their abuser, but they may have to transfer kids for holiday visitation, and that can also be another risky time. So always making sure that that phone is on them, that it's charged, talking to kids about what they can do to stay safe if there is some kind of an incident at home. Would they go to a neighbor? Would they, do they have their own phone that they could call? And checking to see, are those neighbors going to be home? Or are they going to be away with family? So identifying where they can go if home isn't safe and where the kids can go. And then making sure that they have some kind of an emergency bag, either in their closet or in their car, that just has a change of clothes, medication, some cash, some, toiletries, keys, just the basic things that if they had to leave for even just a day or two, that they would have those things with them. And that's just one less stress. If I have 2 days worth of my medication in my bag, then I'm not having to think, at least I'm not having to think about that.
Right. And now even masks and possibly gloves.
Yeah.
I carry in my car in a baggie extra disposable mask just in case my little girl, forgets and I forget to tell her to get her mask, and or my mom, or I forget myself. I remember one day being at a store and a lady had one of the disposable masks on. I don't know how many times, how many days she worn it, but it was just falling apart. And she didn't have a backup. And so, I offered to go to my car to give her one there. And so having those PPEs also is going to be a part of that safety bag, or that emergency bag. Talk a little bit more too about self-care as it relates to managing, again, the stress and anxiety. And this will be helpful for everyone. Survivors and victims and all of us, because this the whole stress. I was having a conversation with someone. I was like, I think I'm gonna need to take a couple of days off for self-care, because I'm just kind of in that blah zone. And I appreciate that we work for an agency that knows the importance of self-care, and when we need to take off to do that. And so talk a little bit more, if you will, and then we're going to transition to talk to Maya about her work with children. But the importance of self-care cannot be overemphasized enough.
Mhm.
I had someone to tell me just this morning. I told her I was taking off tomorrow. She said, after we have our little meeting that we have first thing in the morning, she said, I expect you to just go in your room, close the door, and go to sleep. I thought, oh, perfect plan, Maybe put on some aromatherapy and some essential oils, relaxation, but that's important. And sometimes we don't, we don't emphasize that enough. So just say a little bit more about that. And then from there, I want to talk to Maya about the work that, like I said, she does with the children and, sharing with them some safety planning and just the importance of, again, we're back to my shameless plug, having that gift that with their name on it that they can open that will be a welcome distraction from maybe the chaos that's going on around them.
Yes. So, and I'll use myself as an example. So the day before Thanksgiving, my husband tested positive for COVID. And then the day after Thanksgiving, my two boys also tested positive for COVID, and I tested negative. So we made the decision that they were going to take over the house and I was going to go stay somewhere else so that they didn't have to stay stuck in their rooms. But that weekend would have been when I decorated the house for Christmas. Well, I haven't been at the house, so there's no decorations up because everybody who's there is feeling lousy and they're not in a place where they want to get all the decorations out. I may have to give myself a break in terms of my own expectations and just go, we may not totally decorate this year. That's okay. And so I think looking at those, if something is an expectation, but it's not fun, it feels stressful rather than enjoyable, then really looking at, do I have to do that? Yes, it's great to have that homemade pecan pie, but the grocery store makes a decent one. And if that's 2 hours that you need to do something else, then go to the grocery store and get it. Or limit the menu. There's always so much food anytime my family gets together. We're eaters. And we don't need all that. Also, the spending and the, I've got to get a gift for this person and this person and this person. Really stopping and asking ourselves, do we have to do that? And maybe if I talk with my sister-in-law, both of us are stressed out, we can go, okay, let's not each of us get a present for each of the other one's kids. Let's dial that back a little bit. And then even the gifts that we do buy don't have to be as extravagant as we would like. To set a budget and be okay with staying in that, and that we don't have to do this huge spending if it's stressing us out and we're worried about the bills and how are we going to pay rent and how are we going to pay electricity, that it's okay to say no to a lot of that. I call them the have-tos and the shoulds. I always put out Christmas lights, so I have to do it, or I should buy gifts for all my nieces and nephews. And kicking out those haves, tos, and shoulds is so important. And whether it's the expectations we set for ourselves or expectations that other people put on us, really being willing to set boundaries and say no. Or just say, not this year. If we've all survived this year, we get a pat on the back. That's enough.
That's
Making it Christmas this year is enough. Yeah. And I think what you said about self-care. So taking a moment, the easiest self-care thing to do is just to stop for 60 seconds or 2 minutes and just breathe. And as simple as that sounds, I love it when I do breathing exercises with clients because it also makes me relax and it makes me remember, oh, I should probably be breathing more often. So I do 4 breaths in and then I hold it for 4 seconds and then I do 8 count breaths out, and 3 or 4 times of that and I'm like, oh, okay, I can keep going. But just stopping, even just looking at Christmas lights and really paying attention to the colors, or noticing the way something smells, any of those things that bring you into the present moment are good mindfulness activities, and they're not, you know, you don't need a special app or a special recording or something. You can do those things anytime.
Perfect, perfect. And you know, with regard to the making decisions about whether or not you're going to exchange gifts or buy gifts, it's not just based on your ability to purchase. I was watching something, I think it was the holiday concert last night, and Kelly Clarkson was saying how, you know, rethinking, I think it was Kelly Clarkson, about, you know, buying gifts, especially when for smaller kids, they're more fascinated with the box that it came in than what's in there. And so just, you know, rethinking this whole gift giving, and, you know, focusing on, you know, what's important, and looking at, you know, the things that we can cut out that's not all that important once we think about it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I keep a bin of different things like paper towel rolls or egg cartons or scraps of wrapping paper, you know, different things that can be made into crafts. And I'm sure Maya would say this too, that anybody who works with kids, like everything is a potential like art project, right? And I will package those up. And I have a little book I like that talks about like using recycled items to make crafts for kids, and I'll give that as a gift. So really all I spent was, I think, the $4.99 on the book, and everything else literally came out of my garbage.
Right.
But kids, I mean, a 5, 6, 7-year-old loves that. That is so
Right.
exciting.
Right.
And it literally didn't cost anything. Maybe it cost a glue stick or some ribbon or something.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Maya, hello again. So tell us a little bit about, you know, what you do in your work with children who are who have witnessed domestic violence, maybe currently living in a home where there is violence that they witness maybe daily. You know, what have been your observations about their behaviors, you know, with specific reference to the holidays, and, you know, what are some of the recommendations do you make to the parents and the children around safety planning?
Absolutely. So,
And some of the red flags and warning signs as well.
mhm, mhm, absolutely. So, for far too many children,
I'm going to need you to speak up just a little bit if you can get.
absolutely. So,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. For far too many children, home is not their safe haven. And with this population in particular, home can be chaotic. And so, during this time, there can be behavioral impacts and there can be psychological impacts on a child. And so a lot of what we're seeing when children come in for counseling services through play therapy or talk therapy, there is going to be an increase in aggression at this time. There might be anxiety, higher levels of depression. There could be changes in their mood and behavior that we notice. And so during this time, what children need more than anything to protect them is support. You know, children during this time, they need to know that there are adults out there that do care for them, that there are safe adults that want to make sure that they're okay. And so this can include their teachers, social workers, extended family like grandparents, aunties, uncles. Just they need to know that they have safe people in their life that they can turn to. And then, you know, you had mentioned warning signs. What should we be looking for? And so for those that are unsure, what they can be looking for is just being alert to what the child is experiencing. And so, as I mentioned earlier, there are different signs. There could be different warning signs. And these warning signs, again, they're warning signs. They don't indicate that domestic violence is going on behind the scenes, but it is important to be aware of, as with domestic violence, it could also lead to child abuse as well. And so with children, we need to look out for the emotional abuse signs. They may have emotional delays. They may experience low self-confidence, low self-worth. And that's a lot of what I'm seeing at this time with a lot of our children as well. they also may withdraw from activities that they used to participate in as well. And so it's really being alert to those changes that you're seeing, whether you're the mom or whether you're another relative or a teacher in their life as well.
So we talked a little bit about, with the children being out of school for about 2 weeks, and there not being childcare available, to some, and maybe they have to go to an auntie's house or grandparents' house. So, what are some of the things that are going to be helpful for those persons who are not with the child every day, but now responsible for maybe caring for them for 2 weeks? And what are some of the things that they can help, relieve some of those anxieties? You talked a little bit when we met about some more aggressive behavior in the children, and addressing that. So talk a little bit about that, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So for children during this time, they will be out of school. They'll be out of school for about two weeks. And so what is helpful for children is to understand changes in their routine, and allowing for them to be prepared for changes in the routine and transitioning during the holidays as well. And so that is something really beneficial to have. So for example, if they are in another home, if they're with their aunt or uncle or another family member, what could be helpful for that caregiver in their life is to be really attuned to what emotional response the child is having. So if they are displaying aggression, responding to that aggression, getting down on that child's level and empathizing with them and reflecting back to them that you're really scared right now, or you're really angry, or you're frustrated, because that can allow for the child to move through that space of aggression, and moving out of that. When their world is upside down, as I mentioned, routine can be very helpful during this time. And so I even want to encourage parents to think about if there could be one small way to try to have a tradition or have some type of Christmas routine or ritual, something that they can do during the holidays that can be special for the child as well. We want to instill this feeling of hope for the children that we serve. And so my shameless plug again is, potentially to provide a gift for a child this year. That could be really helpful and important during this season as well.
Absolutely. And that was going to be my next thing for you to address about, how a simple toy, doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but something that is meant for them to say, this is for you, you're special, how far that goes, in helping a child, be hopeful in an otherwise tumultuous environment or setting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It is important. Those little things, it's a small little gesture, but it allows a child to feel important, that they matter, that they're special, that someone out there cares for them. And so this year, for those that are able to, I encourage you to think about that and donate to Friends of the Family during your Adopt a Family holiday drive.
Well, both Maya and I have made shameless plugs about Adopt a Family. And we have Nadia here from Marketing and Development, who can tell us a little bit more about that, how awesome the experience was, what we did for the Thanksgiving drive. And I got to the office this morning really early, and outside the office were like 8 to 10 boxes that was to the attention of Marketing and Development that came from Amazon, because I know you are making available for persons to purchase things through Amazon and delivering. And so when I saw those, I was just smiling, picking them up and bringing them in, thinking, great, we need more of that. But how exciting it was to know that we had received those as a result of the Adopt a Family, and how that's going to make someone feel special, if only for a few minutes. So come off of mute, Nadia, and tell us a little bit more about Adopt a Family.
Okay, wonderful. Well, first of all, I encourage you to listen to our latest podcast, if you haven't already, about Adopt a Family. There it is, just a couple posts down on our social media, and also on our Instagram page, and you can stream it anywhere that you listen to podcasts for the most part, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And I really enjoyed listening to it because it features one of our longtime volunteers, Nancy Rodriguez, who is always there for all of our drives and is tremendously helpful. She was there for Thanksgiving as well. We have definitely been overwhelmed with the generosity of the community. This is my first Adopt a Family as an employee at Denton County Friends of the Family, and it, like Cassandra was saying, it's really amazing to see all the packages we've been getting. Our office was just like flooded with packages from people in the community. I think Amazon is a really great tool, especially during this time, since a lot of people aren't comfortable with going out and physically doing the shopping. So that's a great option, and I will put a link in the comments if that's something that any of our viewers are interested in doing. We are very fortunate in that we have gotten most of our kids adopted, but we still need a little bit help, particularly with getting wrapping paper to give to moms so that they can wrap the presents for their kids and kind of maintain that, I guess, ritual in a way of preparing the kids to give the gifts to give their kids, which is something small, but it's something very special. And I think that like having those wrapped gifts is really important. So we are in need of wrapping paper. In addition to that, we are also trying to provide a meal for each of the families so that moms don't have to worry about that. So gift cards to grocery stores are very much appreciated. And for the kids that are not having their specific, that a donor is not shopping for, we're providing a shopping experience for the moms where they will go and get to pick out specific things for their kids. So if you would like to host a toy drive between now, it's coming up soon. So definitely get in contact with us if that's something that you're interested in. But there are tons of options on how to get involved. And of course, we're always looking for volunteers to help sort and give out these items.
Yes, and every bit helps. I mentioned mentioning this to a friend, and she lives in San Antonio. And so when I announced that we were needing, help with our Adopt a Family, she sent through Zelle to me $15. And so yesterday morning, I gave to Paige, $15 in cash with my friend's information on there for giving to Adopt a Family. On Facebook, I've been so excited when I've seen people say, we're not going to do our normal gift exchange. And so we have set an amount that we would spend on each other. So we're going to all collect that and submit it to Friends of the Family for their adoptive family. Because going back to what you said, Lisa, about, looking at what we can strike off the list, what is and what isn't, important in the whole scheme of things. And when people do that, I had a lady who their family did that last year, and among them, they donated $300, and she was so excited, about doing that. And that excitement from giving and helping someone in need oftentimes is greater than the excitement of you who can get anything you want almost, giving that gift, giving to someone who needs. There's a lot of satisfaction in that. And so we welcome and encourage everyone to consider. I have something in the chat I want to mention. Yeah, that you can use smileamazon.com and designate Friends of the Family as their charity. A percentage of what they spend on Amazon goes to Denton County Friends of the Family. So Lisa, yeah, thank you for bringing that up and mentioning that.
Yeah,
Well,
because
we
we're
have
all spending a little bit more on Amazon right now, and it's absolutely the same whether you use smile.amazon.com or amazon.com. And that money just automatically goes to Friends of the Family.
awesome, awesome. Well, for the person who has been with the agency the longest and has a wealth of knowledge about providing services to um, persons impacted by domestic violence and sexual assault, has worked in most areas of the agency. One person that's new to the agency designated her as their go-to because of her knowledge, and not only just the knowledge, but the passion for what we do as an agency is reflected in how she directs the department that I'm in, the Prevention, Education, and Awareness Program. She is doing a podcast. So, Hillary Hightower, hi again. Tell us, why this conversation and at this time is so important, and what have been your observation over these last 12 to 13 or so years being with Friends of the Family, and what you would want people to know and or do on behalf of our clients, around this time of the year.
I am so grateful to you inviting me into the conversation. And obviously, I have a love and obsession for Denton County Friends of the Family and the work we do. And I think, you know, Amanda said something that was super important, which is domestic violence doesn't stop just because it's the holidays. And we know that domestic violence is a choice that an abuser is making to hurt their family. And just because it's a holiday doesn't mean that abuser's like, oh, happy holidays, I'll stop today. I mean, sometimes they could, I suppose, but what we know based on Janelle's data and the reality of the situation is that that's not always the case. And abuse happens when abuse happens because an abuser is making a choice to abuse their family. And because of that, it is so necessary for folks in the community to know that our services don't stop just because it's the holidays or just because we are in the middle of a pandemic. And so Amanda and her team have adapted amazingly. We have a text line now for the crisis line. And so you can call the crisis line, but you can also text the crisis line at the same and 940 number. And I know that Nadia has put that up in the chat box for folks who, or the comments box for folks who need that. But that number is 940-382-7273 for folks who want to text or call the crisis line. And I think that's valuable. The other pieces of it are, we can sit around a lot and really get in, for me, what I often say is get real privilegey about stuff. People are disappointed that we can't, that they can't put up a Christmas tree, that they're not going to see their extended family this year. And I think really just stepping back and taking a moment to recognize that some of our clients never get to put up a Christmas tree. And some of our clients never get to see their extended family because their batterers have isolated them. And those are some realities that we face year round. And of course, we have Adopt a Family going on right now. And I love our Adopt a Family drive, but I'm also one to encourage you to support Friends of the Family year round. If you are someone who believes in the magic of this time of year and you sort of get caught up in the spirit of this, let that spirit take you year round, and let us be the agency where you choose to be connected and to give to folks who really need it year round and not just at this time of year. Because Lisa and Maya talked about the stress level that our clients are, facing all the time. And then there's an added layer of the expectations of holidays. And I think our team does a group called Advance, which is acknowledging domestic violence and navigating child protection effectively. And one of the things that we talk about in that is that self-care is not always an option for our clients. And I know that Lisa and Maya, as therapists, you'll know that, and Amanda too, you work where people live. So you know that that's not always an option. And so I appreciated, Lisa, you just talking about the breathing, because sometimes that's all we can manage is just to take 4 deep breaths and like move on, and by we, I specifically am speaking about our clients, of course, is that's all that can be managed that day, is just to stop for a minute and take 4 deep breaths and then move forward. And so, Cassandra, to talk about adopt a family and this time of year, I think this year is just so unique in that people have been stressed to the max. And so we often have folks like Maya and Lisa and our counseling staff and Amanda and her team ready to safety plan with people around the holidays, because they're going to have to be around family that they haven't had to be around. This year, we've been safety planning with people because they've been trapped with family for 9 months. And so I think that's just a reality that, we were not prepared for. I saw a meme last night. I shared it with Cassandra that said, I bet people are going to eat their black-eyed peas on New Year's this year. And
Every last one of them.
Every last black-eyed pea people are going to eat. And I think there's this, feeling that if someone asks us, like, what do you see happening in 2020? A global pandemic was not on the list, right? Or at least it was pretty far down, and it was some conspiracy theorist out there who had that on the list. And it has really impacted our clients, but it has not impacted our ability to provide services to them. We have been able to pivot and provide, in some instances, greater and better services for our clients than we could in person. Now, it certainly hindered play therapy, Maya, and y'all being able to see kiddos in person for a long time. And I know that was super hard on the folks who primarily see children and adolescents, but it did not stop Denton County Friends, the family, and the wheels on our bus just kept on rolling. And I think that is what we do. I saw an email from Tony, our executive director, in a thread of emails this morning where she said, Denton County Friends, the family is a brand. And people in the community really either know about us or they don't know about us. And some who do think we're just a shelter. And, that's why one of our hashtags this year has been not just a shelter, because we aren't just a shelter. We have done so much more. And our team, the Prevention, Education, and Awareness team, we're used to being in schools and doing a lot of school-based presentations. And that has looked very different this fall. Of course, lots of them got canceled in the spring. And this fall, visitors haven't been allowed on any campuses in our community. And so we have had to shift our training to be virtual based. And we have lots of virtual training scheduled for the spring. But it hasn't stopped us. And one thing that for us that we've recognized for virtual trainings with adults is you can get a lot more people via Zoom than you can in real life, in-person trainings to engage in that process. And so we've been able to reach thousands more in our community by training virtually than we would have if we had been doing those things in person all fall. Now, do we miss seeing people in person? And is there something to be said for that? Absolutely. We have high hopes for 2021, but I think it is important to note that we have been able to shift and pivot our services in a way. And we are all, everyone on this call and everyone at the agency is so grateful to all of you out there who have decided, this year we're not going to do our big family gift giving. We're going to take the money we would spend for that and give it to Denton County Friends, the family, or we're going to take the money and buy gifts for clients at Denton County Friends of the Family. It is invaluable. And as someone who has run the Adopt a Family program for our agency before, that is one of the best things that we can do for our clients at this time. time. And so for those of you listening, Nadia's not wrong. It's a tight turnaround. Gifts are due back, and we've got to start getting them out to families in the next week or so. But if you are interested, please get with our marketing and development team and get a plan, and they will help you work that out seamlessly. And so I'm grateful. Thank you to all of you for being on the call. I liked this call that there were different pieces of the importance of taking care of ourselves and our clients at this time of year.
Thank you, Hillary. Nadia, did we end up with any questions from Facebook?
No, it doesn't look like it.
I saw a few comments. So for those of you who are listening in and giving the agency kudos, thank you so very much for that and for your support. Again, we are Denton County Friends of the Family. We are 40 years strong, and we will continue to provide compassionate and comprehensive services to our clients. As I mentioned early on, this is part 2 of a 3-part series we are calling At Home for the Holidays. So the third conversation is on December 17th at 1 o'clock, same location. And we'll have our shelter director to talk about our clients in shelter during the holidays. Amanda, as Hillary said, you work where people live. And so talking about the experience that we provide in our compassionate, comprehensive services to our clients who are in shelter. Hillary's going to come back to talk about we as providers of services, what we can do, additional things we can do for self-care. And also one of the persons from the advocacy team will talk about, give us a little bit more about safety planning and for our clients and what we can do. Thank you so much for each of you for providing your expertise. Thank you for what you do for our clients and the agency. And we will continue to do this. And if you have any questions about getting involved, we are available through Facebook, of course, through our website, dcfof.org. We have an Instagram account. We are on Twitter, and we are also, when we can, on TikTok. So there's multiple ways by which you can get in contact with us, and we encourage you to do so. If we don't have any closing comments from anyone, I just want to thank everyone who tuned in. Please share this so that people can be enlightened as you have been today, and we look forward to seeing you again on December 17th. Have a good rest of the day and happy holidays from Denton County Friends of the Family.